set free. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Ooh, I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. Oh, I can see it now. Oh, I can see the love in your eyes, laying yourself down, raising up the broken to You take our failure, you take our weakness, you set your treasure in jars of clay. So take this heart, Lord, I'll be your vessel, the world to see your life in me. Oh, amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Ooh, I once was lost,
All right, 46 are present, and 40 constitutes a quorum. So we can continue on officially with our congregational meeting. So what we did at the annual meeting, what we did before was, because times are changing and there are individuals that are not here physically present, but they are at home online and they are members, we wanted to give them an opportunity to be a voice, if not a vote in, to this meeting as such. And Pastor Jim is online with those individuals right now, and so we can interact with them. And so what we would need, since our bylaws require a presence, a physical presence, we had made the adjustment at the congregational meeting, annual meeting, where we would still constitute people that were online as present. Do you remember when we did that before? And so what I would like us to do officially is to do exactly the same thing that we did at the annual meeting. And therein is we would need a motion to accept those that are online as considered as present, and then also allow their vote to be counted. So in so doing, we would need a motion for that. Unless there's a question or discussion, I'm opening that up right now, or we can entertain a motion for that. Yes, sir. 10 are online.
10 are watching, but some of them represent couples.
Okay.
I didn't get the full count yet.
Okay. Yeah. So, any other questions? Yes. Yes. The question was, does Fran need to know? And I say yes, and PJ will be responsible to get that information to Fran as a secretary for tonight's meeting. All right. Okay, there's a motion by Fran that the wording is those that are present, those that are online would be considered as present, provided that they are members, and that would constitute them as if they were being here with us. So I would need a second for that. Second, thank you. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you very much. All right. What was available at the table in the coming in were two of the minutes, written minutes, that were, one was from a special meeting from August the 25th, and then the other one was from January the 26th. We did not provide them for you ahead of time for your perusal, but now we are providing for them for you. And so at our next congregational meeting, whenever that's going to be, then we will approve those minutes. And so we have made them available for you if there's any corrections that need to be done, and then we will receive those minutes at our next meeting. And I just wanted to make that clear. They're available there, and if there's not enough there, we will make sure we will get them available to anybody that's interested in those minutes as such. All right. There are a series of things that we want to go through. I want to give some informational updates so that you are aware of where we are, both financially and some decisions that were made. Then we will get into discussing some of the bylaw changes that need to take place. And then we're going to end with talking about the position of a worship pastor. And this basically, we're going to open this up for discussion, just to hear where your thoughts are or any questions that you might have, and then that will pretty much bring us to the end of our meeting. But let me go through some of this information just to keep you up to date on what's been happening. Some of you are aware that at the beginning of this year, we came through some difficult finances. They weren't terrible, but they weren't great, and so we decided, when I say we, Pastor Jim and I, in our discussions, along with the Board of Ministries and the Board of Elders, that we would receive a 15% cut to our salary. That lasted for a number of months. I can't remember the exact how many months it was, but anyway, in the most recent days, that our finances as a church has gone up, and therefore we have reversed those cuts, and now we are back at our stated salary that was approved at our congregational meeting, our annual meeting of the budget as such. And so just wanted to let you know that financially we had made some major strides in that. But if you have question and you wanted to talk about that, I would open that up for any questions that you might have that relates to finances, as it constitutes about where are we financially, and that's what I'm just bringing you up to speed on. Any questions? Do you want to share something? Sure, go ahead. That would be great, Denise.
So as Pastor Mark said, we're much. So we are in a much better place financially than we were at the annual meeting at the end of January. We told you at that time that we had borrowed some money from dedicated savings accounts to pay for general expenses. So we've paid that back, the $9,000 into the capital fund, and all of the Night to Shine money. We covered the expenses for that, and what had been donated for that was left over is now being designated specifically for Night to Shine. So, and actually, right now, we have a little over $2,700 after the yard sale for next year's Night to Shine. So we're ahead of the game there. We have over $24,000 for life saved up. So with all their fundraising and all the different things and the donations that they've done. We have close to $22,000 in our checking account. The other thing that we really hope to do, and right now we're able to do that, is save 1 month's worth of salaries. So that's about $12,000. So we have $11,800 right now. Closer is better. Okay. So overall, much better. I do the note of caution, though. We're averaging over $7,700 a week, which is good. But the offering does still continue to fluctuate. So the first week of this month, it was over $9,500, and then last week it was $5,300. So we're cautiously optimistic, I guess, is what I'd say. We're also heading into the summer. The summer is traditionally offerings decline fairly substantially. The other thing is that in addition to our normal operating expenses, in the next few months, we're looking at, the Board of Ministries decided that they wanted to pay the pastors back for the money that they had foregone from their salary the first few months of this year. So we owe them just shy of $2,300, the two of them combined. We do have the money, which is great, to resurface the parking lot, which is going to happen soon, but that's $7,000. VBS is coming up, so that'll be, $1,500 or more, possibly. And then I think that we might be talking about the refinancing of the mortgage later. So even though the company that we're going with isn't charging anything, there are lawyers' fees and all the New York State things, which could be in the neighborhood of $5,000. So with those four things we're looking at, and this is a really rough estimate, about $16,000. So the fact that we have the $21,000 in the checking account is good. But just to be really clear, savings-wise, we have the 1 month of pastor's salary, and we have about $1,400 that isn't earmarked for something. So the hope is that ongoing, we're going to increase that amount that we have saved for the pastor's salaries. We'd like to have 3 months of that saved. so that if we hit a downturn, we're more prepared than we've been. So that was
So any questions that you might have associated with finances? Thank you, Denise. There's no reports in front of you, but just giving you a general view of where we are financially. No questions? All right. It's just an update. I don't see it as a report, so I'm not going to need for a motion to receive that. It's just to bring you up to speed on some of that. So one of the things that I'm going to go into the next thing, and that's talking about changing who handles our mortgage for the addition that was done here in 2008. We had been dealing with Key Bank, and Key Bank has been rather problematic as both as a bank, but also just in the professional field. We talked about that at our annual congregational meeting, and so then we have been moving in that direction to switch banks, and that also means giving us the opportunity to move into a different lending agency. So I was interacting with the Orchard Foundation that was associated with the Christian Missionary Alliance. We were able to secure a better interest rate for our loan that we have. We're somewhere around $340,000 that we owe rest of this on this construction that was done here, and so the interest that we had with Key Bank was 4.79, and then with Orchard Foundation we were able to secure 4.5%. Now, in the days and months, if not years to come, we'll have opportunity to talk further about that. And for those, informationally wise, those that want to invest in the Orchard Foundation, if you are so inclined and God were to lead you, there are ways in which that 4.5 can actually drop. If members of that church say, you know what, I want to invest my money into the Orchard Foundation, and there are ways for that to happen. I can't give you the details now because I don't know all those details, but I know that that was shared with me when the representative of Orchard was here and he met with our elders and our board of ministries. And so the board of ministries and the elders together decided that we are going to change from Key Bank as a mortgage lender and move over to the Orchard Foundation. And we are in process with that. Some of you may not realize this, but for us as a church to move from one lending agency to another, the New York State Attorney General requires that they approve of that transaction. And it seems crazy, but ironically, I just today received a letter from the Attorney General that says that we can do that. They gave us permission. So, thank you. It's a very laborious and detailed process, which is absolutely ridiculous in my mind. And I'm sorry, I probably shouldn't share my feelings on it, but anyway, it is what it is, and yet we've been approved. Thank the Lord for that. Which now means that as we interact with the Orchard Foundation, they are going to connect with a title company, and that's what Denise was talking about in referencing lawyer fees and the title search and all those kinds of things. That all has to be done when a mortgage is shifted over from one lender to another. And those are what those things that Denise was talking about that can tally upwards of $5,000. We've already connected with a title company, the one here in Auburn, and then Orchard will be dealing with them. That's one of my to-do list things tomorrow as such. But we just wanted you to be aware that associated with dealing with Key Bank as a banking institution, we are leaving them also as a lending agency. That then has also initiated those of our ladies that are in charge of our finances for us to move over to Tompkins Trust. So Tompkins Trust now is going to become our bank, and as we are making these final steps to walk away from Key Bank as such. Now, with Orchard Foundation, the relationship that we have developed with them, they have offered to us for an opportunity to take a cash availability associated with the loan for if there's anything that you desire to, as a church, you, meaning us as a church, need those finances for. And so with the decision of the Board of Ministries and the Elder Board, we have taken a cash out offer associated with our loan with Orchard Foundation to cover the costs of the abatement and the demolition of the parsonage. Some of you may have known this, that the original price for the demolition of that and abatement and demolition of the parsonage was around $36,000. That was pre-COVID, but now post-COVID, it went to $46,000. And so with that, that's a major jump, but that's all of us are experiencing that with the costs of I would say inflationary things. And so the two boards together, having the full knowledge of what this involves, we have taken more money in the sense of our loan associated with the Orchard Foundation to cover those expenses as such. And we haven't received that money yet, and we haven't also paid off the Key Bank mortgage, but that is up and coming in the next couple of weeks as such. Any questions that you might have associated with the things that I've been talking about? Yes. Our mortgage payment was about $3,600 a month with Key, but with the refinancing through the Orchard, it was extended as a 20-year, and we haven't been doing that as 20, and it's somewhere around $2,600 a month, but we'll pay more. That'll be my initiation for that. Yes. Question offline?
Don Delaney asked, shouldn't the congregation need to vote on that additional burden?
That's the question. Should the congregation vote on that? We discussed that at the elder. I don't know if you can hear me, Don, but we discussed it at the elder level, and we discussed it at the Board of Ministries level, and they felt that decision should fall to our leadership, elected leadership. Yes, sir.
Is there a specific amount that can be made decisions to receive, to borrow money that would require a vote from the congregation rather than just for the elders and the Board of Ministries?
I'm not understanding your question. Is there a certain limit? You mean?
Decided that the Board of Ministry and the elders decided that it would be great to send the pastors on a Caribbean cruise, and it was $30,000, just an example.
Right.
Would there be, is there an amount that is required to be brought to the congregation that they have to vote on?
My understanding there isn't, because there's nothing that's identifiable to specifics as even that relates to loans. I mean, I don't know the decision that was made to originally go with the construction of this facility. Was that a board of elders? Was that a board of ministry decision? Was that it was a congregational decision, knowing the limit of that. In the context of our situation, we had made available to the congregation to give to dealing with the parsonage. Very minimal amount of money had come in. I don't even think it was, I don't know the exact number. $375 came in. That, we didn't push that. We didn't knock on your door. it has to be dealt with. And the Board of Elders and the Board of Ministries felt they carried the authority to be able to do that.
I'm not questioning
I understand.
authority of the Board of Elders and the,
Right.
with their wisdom in any way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just asking,
That's a good question.
I believe there should, since we have an open loan with the Orchard Foundation, that anytime you want to spend some money,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't. No, it's not a line of credit. It's the amount was set at 400,000, and that would be because it was not, and they had to approve it. You're talking about the Orchard Foundation had to approve it. Yeah. So technically we were asking Orchard Foundation for 400,000, and there's 60,000 in there of buffer, not knowing if pricing was going to go up or not. They approved of that. The Board of Ministries and the Board of Elders approved of that, and therein that's where we're at right now. There was no need to ask. We can't go back and ask for more money. It's not like we're going to say, hey, now we need another 25,000 because the pastors want to go to Hawaii or something. I understand what you're saying. I don't know where in the bylaws if it says anything to that. Were any major financial decisions? Does Don know?
Well, just my question.
Okay.
Did the congregation vote to take down the parsonage?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, the congregation voted.
And at that point, Lee did have information about how much the estimate was.
Right.
So we didn't talk about the terms as to how we were going to raise those funds at that congregational meeting, but the congregation did make this decision.
That is true. That's a very good point. So thank you for that clarity. Yes, sir.
so in all fairness to what he's asking and what Don is asking, a bit of a question from somebody who's not in meeting.
Yeah.
So what I was saying is, I think that for what you're asking and what Don's asking, I think it's a valid question for people who haven't been in the closed door meetings. And I think being part of the leaders of the church, it is our responsibility to keep the communication as open as we can. But in this certain circumstance, it's something we have to deal with. I think there's any other time that we would talk about money, there would definitely be an opportunity to discuss that, go to the congregation. But seeing how there was already a vote to take care of that and is only going to get more expensive, and God forbid something happened where somebody gets injured on that property, we would be so liable. So in a lot of prayer and consideration of that, so we can take care of that property over there and do the right thing, we needed to take care of that. So for me personally, I see two positives come out of this. Number one, we're getting rid of an issue that could be possibly more costly to the church, whether it be lawsuits or litigation, any of that stuff. But also we're going through the Orchard Foundation, and to me it's a blessing. Yes, we're going to owe money and pay that back, but the beauty of the Orchard Foundation is that money that comes in is used to further the kingdom of God. So yes, we owe money, but to me, if we had to owe money, at least the interest that we're paying is going to benefit his work around the world. So I hope that makes sense. I think what you're asking is very valid. Mm-hmm. If we wanted to do something different, if we were going to decide to add on to this church, yes, that needs to be a decision that we are going to discuss as a congregation.
Absolutely.
But we have discussed it. We did vote on it, that needs to be dealt with. And so I feel like this is a blessing that the Lord has given to us. So I don't know if that makes any sense or gives more clarity.
That's good. Excellent. Thank you. Somebody else have a question or comment?
Gonna get rained on?
It's going to feed back.
I just think that I would make the comment, and I'm sorry if I'm wrong, but that since we have the bylaws right in front of us, I just would read for the responsibilities of the Board of Ministry, Section 3. The Board of Ministry shall conduct the necessary business of the church in keeping with the Constitution and bylaws. So I really think that the decision to borrow the money from the Orchard Foundation per our bylaws, and I don't know the Constitution, if there's anything contradictory in the Constitution to this, but I believe the real answer is that the Board of Ministry has the authority and the responsibility to make this decision, and I believe that's how it happened. So, sorry if I didn't have enough time to find it all. She wants me to look the elders in the eye. Let's see here. Is it before or after Board of Ministry?
Before.
Section 1, but it's the second page of section 1. Page 4.
Okay. And where do you want me to read? Okay. In the bylaws, Article 5, Elders, Section 1, subsection I. Excuse me. This is regards the elders, they shall receive and hold, sell, or otherwise dispose of or encumber any and all such holdings as directed by 2/3 vote of the active members present at a meeting of the congregation duly called to consider such matters. An accurate record shall be kept of all transactions. So that goes to the vote that we had?
We are encumbering property, so we are supposed to do it 2/3 congregational vote.
Which we did. Back, no, to deal with the property in the context of disposing of the building.
I understand, but
Well, maybe that'd be looked into.
borrowing additional money, which is further encumbering the property, which
Oh.
I think
Oh, okay, so you're making the assessment that this should be a congregational vote at a 2/3 level to take more money with the loan. Okay.
Well, I
see
think
what
if
you're
nothing
saying.
else, we know the right places to look more closely at. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Is that part of what you were talking about, Bucky? That question, that comment? Okay. And that's sort of what Don was saying too.
It was not that I was deciding that it should be
Right.
done or anything like that. I was just, it was always
Mm-hmm.
back, and when the bylaws were started, it was
Right.
the point that the congregation had the authority to vote on things like that.
Uh-huh.
To vote on borrowing money because the congregation is going to shoulder that responsibility of paying it back.
That's true. That is true.
So therefore, there was
Yeah.
they had the right to vote, and whether there is an exact amount, I do not know.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I was under the impression and under the interpretation that differently than what is being shared, that the Board of Elders and the Board of Ministries carried that responsibility and were just fulfilling what the congregation had already voted on in demolition and in dealing with that. But I understand this is a step in a carrying the load of finances. And so I'm comfortable moving forward with that in the context of having a vote that due to this, the context of this, that we would approve or disapprove of taking of extra money associated with the loan to deal with the abatement of the parsonage. Does that make sense? Yes. Uh-huh. I understand what you're saying too. Right. If we've already approved of the demolition of it, how are we going to financially cover that? Yes, sir.
Don says, we did approve to demolish, but that should have been part of our operating budget. An additional line item in the budget. Leadership has committed us to an additional 60,000 plus interest without the approval of the congregation.
Okay. All right. That makes sense to me. Did you hear what PJ was saying from Don? Did you hear that? Okay, could you say it again, please?
Don said, leadership has committed us to an additional 60,000 plus interest without the approval of the congregation. We did approve to demolish, but that should have been part of our operating budget, an additional line item within the budget.
As long as it's been approved before, that there shouldn't be any question. We should not have to vote on that expenditure. That's fine. My question originally was, is there a limit to what the leadership of the church can add on to the load that the congregation needs to pay? That was my original question.
I would say yes to that, but I don't know what that number is.
I don't either.
You know, and there's no limit to it, but I understand the line here that we're talking about is that we're putting more burden. You know, the 340,000 is already an existing burden that had been approved of some 2008, 2009, but now we're adding to that. All right, so I'm comfortable entertaining a motion to approve as a congregation to take this extra money, if you want to call it, associated with Orchard Foundation, and to cover the abatement of the parsonage. Question? Yeah. Okay. Okay, there's a second.
Can you verbalize that for people online?
Do you want me to verbalize this? That we, as a congregation, are approving of receiving $400,000 through the Orchard Foundation to not only cover the existing loan, but also to cover the abatement and demolition of the parsonage.
That was moved and seconded.
It was moved and seconded. Any other questions?
Yes. When we originally voted on it, was an amount given? When we originally voted, what was the amount given?
36,000 was the original amount given for approval of demolition.
Okay.
And there was no line item created in our budget that was to deal with that. Yes.
Charlie Crable asks, would it be better to wait until the inflationary period is over?
No. Sorry. I appreciate. Yeah. So while we were getting, just for those of you, there are a group of young teenage boys that are enjoying that hillside, and they were throwing. I think they were throwing their brothers and sisters Fisher Price stuff over the hill, and then Mark went, and I more Mark than me because I put him in front of me. You just never know, you know. And he told them not to do that, and then, but I have seen them for years walk through here. They're the same boys, and there's a broken window over in the garage now. Someone threw a stone through the side window, and it's just going to continue to get worse. We need to deal with the parsonage, period. And this is an opportunity that both the Board of Ministries and the Board of Elders saw us do that. Now, we are sharing this with you, and I understand the traditional, the precedent had been set that when it comes to finances, that we bring it to the congregation. I understand that. So there's a motion, there's a second. Any other discussion? Sure. Mm-hmm.
Sorry. In the minutes from the August 25th meeting, when we talked about this, if you look towards the bottom of the paragraph, concerning asbestos and demo to remove it, remaining asbestos, remove building and grade is approximately $40,000 if hired out. Lee's advice is to pay the $40,000 and let someone else assume the risk of getting rid of the asbestos. So we're not that far away from the $46,000, and this was approved in August. So
I fully understand what you're saying. It's what this is really doing by voting on this is what we're doing is we're affirming where we are financially as a church and bearing, as a congregation, bearing that responsibility. Depending on how you interpret the minutes and how you interpret the bylaws, it could be covered. That's sort of what I had thought by what the Board of Elders and the Board of Ministries had decided. But I understand that we're in a congregational context, and by voting, you're bearing the responsibility. And I think that's important to emphasize. So I don't have a problem with that if we vote that direction, but I just want that to be clear on what we're doing. Any other comments, discussion? Yes, sir.
I just think it's a little dangerous what we're doing, especially if it's not approved, okay? But I don't believe that we're following the bylaws. I just want to read this, and I just want to give my interpretation and caution everyone because it's better than keeping my mouth shut. In this paragraph that Fran mentioned, it says regarding the elders, they shall receive and hold, sell, or otherwise dispose of or encumber any and all such holdings as directed by 2/3 of the vote of the active members present at a meeting of the congregation duly called to consider such matters. An accurate record shall be kept of all transactions. I don't read this to mean that a two-thirds vote is necessary to spend money. I read this to say that if the congregation directs the elders with a 2/3 vote to dispose of something or buy something, the elders have a responsibility to see it through. It doesn't mean that they need to have the permission or a 2/3 vote in order to, and I don't really think it's under the elders. I think it's under the Board of Ministries, which says that the Board of Ministries has the authority to conduct the business of the church. So I'm not saying I don't think it's a good idea that the congregation weighs in and has their voices heard, but I don't believe that it's of the minutes or of the bylaws that we have to do it. So thank you for your patience. Well, like I said, what this says is if the congregation by a 2/3 vote directs the elders to dispose of something, they're supposed to do it. It doesn't say they have to get a 2/3 vote in order to do it, and I don't even think it falls under the elders. I think it falls under the Board of Ministries. So thank you so much.
Do you want to respond?
Just, yes, because we're not talking about having permission to dispose of the property. We've voted to do that. Where it says or encumber, we are encumbering the property further by how many $1,000? $46,000 because we're adding that to the mortgage loan. So that's a lien on the property. That encumbers the property. And that's the issue. It's not whether or not there's permission to dispose of it or anything like that. It's because we are adding an additional financial lien on the property that the 2/3 vote is required.
Okay. All right.
My concern in the beginning was I thought this Orchard Foundation was a line of credit,
No.
but you clarified that it was not.
It is not a line of credit. Thank the Lord.
It was always, it has been approved before, so
Yes.
whether this is
Yes.
brought to a vote or not, that
Right, right. Okay, any other discussion? Sure. Can it be voted upon? My understanding is yes. Because this is a congregational meeting and this is an official meeting, therefore it is, that's my understanding. Yeah.
It's not a change in bylaw, so that doesn't have to be posted.
Right. All right. Can I call for the question? All right. If you are going to vote in favor of the motion saying that we would receive the 400,000 from Orchard Foundation, 340, 60,000 for abatement of and demolition of the parsonage. If you're in favor of that, would you vote yay? Is all in favor? Raise your hands, please. Okay. Okay, I didn't count them, but I'll wait and do I need to count them? It's almost everybody. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 10, 11. I see 37.
Okay, we need 31, so that's.
Okay. All righty. Thank you. How about online votes?
I'm getting them.
Did we incorporate that into the number? Not yet. The number, so. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So just for, again, clarity's sake, we're going to be in the next month, we'll be switching over to Tompkins Trust. Soon as the money comes from Orchard Foundation, then we will make that transition and begin closing those accounts. There's a number of accounts that we have dealing with the youth and Alliance Women too, I think, and there's a whole number of them. And I am so thankful for our team of individuals that handle these things. They are very much savvy on this, and I praise God for their talent and ability in this. So the next, we're going to switch from information, and we're going to begin discussing some of the bylaw changes. So if you need a copy of the bylaws, there was a copy over there, and we're going to walk through. There are 3 areas in which we're going to be addressing of bylaw changes. One is an editorial changes, because there was some need to go through and make some editorial changes because of a lot of our bylaws were written under the auspice that we had a senior pastor, and we have transitioned into a lead pastor role, and we don't have a senior pastor. And then we're also have been developing a pastoral team, so that wording has to be incorporated into our bylaws. Those words are simply editorial changes. And so I will identify those changes as we go through it. And we're going to go page by page, and I'm going to walk us through this. So are we going to be able to have that up there for people to see? There, good, excellent. Yes, sir.
Can we get a final tally on the vote? 47 yes.
Okay.
Do we have the noes?
I didn't ask for no's. Yeah. So, so what we will do is this will show you, and then the second area of change is we changed in the context of the role of the deaconesses, and that has some I'll call it major changes. It's mostly wording, but I will explain some of that when we get there. And then third is we're going to be changing the annual meeting from January to December. And when we get to that, that'll make sense because we can give you the rationale for why we're going to do that. But let's start by starting at page 1, and you can see there. So what we are going to be adding at the very top, and this is for the sake of understanding and clarity, is that we're going to add the last date when the bylaws have been amended. That's what you see in blue. Now, once these bylaws are approved and these changes are approved, then that will switch from being blue to being black, just for the sake of understanding. So every time I look at a set of the bylaws, all I see is adopted October 3rd, 1984. But I can't tell when were they last amended until I go to the very back of the bylaws, and there is a long list of all the amendments that have taken place. And so what I am suggesting is that we put at the top, we would say, we put the date last amended, in particularly June the 15th, 2022. It makes it easier when you're looking at the different bylaws that have been printed and copied and been passed out to individuals in the church. Because I have people come to me and say, well, look at this in the bylaw. And I go, well, when was this printed? I have no clue. It could be from 10 years ago, and maybe there was already a change that had taken place. And so this way you can look right at the first page. You'll know that's when it's the most recent amended bylaw that is available for the congregation. That's the rationale behind that simple little thing. So I'm just going to move on. Drop down, still on page 1, it talks about under section 2C, the course shall be prepared and taught by the pastoral team or someone they shall designate. And in so doing, this is just an editorial change. This is what we do. This is how Pastor Jim and I are working together in the context of membership as such. So it's what we're already doing, and this is just getting us up to speed on what we're accomplishing right now as it relates to membership. So turn over to page 2, all right? Another editorial change here under B, adding of pastoral team, and that's pretty much what these are adding to it. It's not changing anything. It's just identifying the fact that we have a pastoral team now rather than a single pastor, because that's what these bylaws were written under. They were under the context of a senior pastor, a solo pastor, and now we have a pastoral team that functions in that capacity. So that's the end of page 2. Page 3, there is nothing there formally. Go over to page 4. Membership. It looks like we're changing a lot, but really what we're doing is we're doing an editorial change. We're adding in the elder board shall consist of the lead pastor and 9 elders. The elder board, at their discretion, may invite other staff members to serve on the elder board. The elected elders' term of service will be 3 years, with 1/3 of their number being elected each year. Now, this is what's being added into this is what happens if we hire more pastoral staff. Are they required to be, in a sense, they are, how I'm going to say this, but are they on the elder board? Not all pastors may be on the elder board. Okay? And in so doing, what this is doing is defining the fact that not all pastors that we may hire in the future will be on the elder board, meaning having a vote as such. And so what this is doing is giving us opportunity to say that the elder board shall consist of the lead pastor and 9 elected elders. The elder board, at their discretion, may invite other staff members, pastors, to serve on the elder board. And so that's what we have done in the context of Pastor Jim as such. Yes, sir.
Should it be specified that staff members are pastors rather than, our secretary is a staff, part of the staff.
Mm-hmm.
Clarity as to who may be on the elder board.
The question was, is that the staff members involve individuals that are not pastors? Does it have to be just pastors? That's what you're saying, as specifying of staff members. Okay. That's definitely a possibility, because you're concerned about they have to be pastors, right?
I'm just suggesting that
Mm-hmm.
should be more precise term rather than just staff members.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. That's actually a very good point, actually. Yes. Because you're right, because there are other staff members that are employed by Auburn Alliance Church that are not pastors. And yes, sir. You have a comment? I understand.
Just down this line of questioning, Pastor Mark and I had a conversation on this as we were working on the final edit for these. The current conversation within the Christian Missionary Alliance has to deal with defining the term pastor and defining the term staff member. That is going to be determined at our next general council. Mm-hmm. So considering that we cannot have bylaws of a local church that is in conflict with what the Alliance has, the Alliance is going to clarify this for us, because it becomes complicated.
Yeah.
Because if we hire a worship pastor who is a woman, she of course cannot serve as an elder because the Alliance does not have female elders. Right. But can we call her a pastor? That is a question that is before the Alliance currently.
Yeah, and that's not the discussion we're going to have here.
Correct. But
I'm just telling you that only because I understand it's a very hot topic, and it's being discussed.
It's being discussed.
And has been discussed at great lengths at the denominational level.
So our bylaws,
go ahead.
Our bylaws fit underneath the Constitution of the Christian Missionary Alliance, and the wording that we chose here does not make a conflict with what the Constitution of the Alliance says.
Yes.
Change it to other eligible staff members. Because we know females are not eligible, and that takes that out of the conversation.
Okay. Yep. Here we go. You're going to have to say it right here into the microphone. There we go.
Sorry. I said, what if we change it to other eligible staff members or staff pastors? Because if you use the word eligible, we know that that takes females out of the role because they're not allowed to be elders.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I'm willing to entertain. Are you going to?
No, I'm gonna help
You're gonna-
you give it to me.
Thank you. That would be great. I want to call you Vanna White, but that wouldn't be right. So, sorry.
All right. I'm ready to say something here. I don't like meetings, I'll be honest with you. Okay, so this is going to seem off topic, but I think it ties in. What type of government is the United States? A representative republic. Okay? As a congregation, we voted for elders to be the trustees of the church. And we must trust them with some decisions. Yes, the congregation has to come together and approve these things, but if we nitpick everything that the elders do, it's just going to bog us all down, and it builds division. We've voted these leaders into position, and we can't question everything that they do. I mean, yes, there are big decisions that I would hope that the elders would come to the congregation for. Like when we built this sanctuary it was over $1 million. And it's amazing that we're down to 400,000 now, right? That was a congregational decision to take on that, and I understand the encumbrance part. So we've got to trust our leadership to a certain point without questioning everything. Yes, we have to follow our bylaws, and there are different interpretations in certain areas, but I think that we can, as I said, nitpick, or we can trust our leaders on some of these things. And I really want to trust the leaders because we put them in position. And if it's a big thing, then yes, we should question it. But there are certain things that are kind of open for discussion. That's my thoughts.
I appreciate very much what you're saying, Kevin. It's interesting because as Pastor Jim and I were walking through this, the wording of this, I think we actually had entertained the idea of the word eligible. And I think then we had taken it out. And I'm very much in favor of putting the word eligible. It may invite other eligible staff members into that context of the elder board, provided that the elder board approves of that individual to step into that role, which is what we're doing with Pastor Jim. He is invited in as a voting member of the elder board. So I don't think it would be inappropriate to add the word eligible in the context of this, making an editorial change to what is being presented. Because that's something that we had discussed. And knowing where the conversation as a denomination is going, I am extremely comfortable with this. I think this is very good. And in so doing, I'm open to that idea. Now, the proper procedure of doing this in following Robert's rules is there would need to be a motion that says that we are going to edit what is being presented and adding the word eligible. That would also need to be seconded, and then it would have to be approved as a congregation in this context. And not that we are approving of the whole thing, we're just approving of adding the word. Okay? You follow what I'm saying? So I'm going to take what you say, Lindsay, as a motion. Is that okay?
I make the motion.
And I have a second over there. All right? How about call for the question? Discussion? Question?
Maybe it's been changed because I haven't had it up to date, but at one point, any changes in the bylaws had to have a 2-week notice. And I'm sorry about that, but is that in line with that?
Well, we had mentioned that these have been posted. The only thing that hadn't changed was adding this word, this single word.
And that amendment is brought by the congregation in this meeting.
Correct.
So that doesn't mean we have to post the
Correct.
changes we've made to this for 2 weeks and then vote on them at that time.
That is correct.
It's really just clarification.
Right.
It's almost
just
like
a
editorial.
clarification. Yes. But that's a good question. You're right. But they were posted. It just didn't have the word eligible in it. And that, I believe, empowers this congregation to be able to do that at this particular
meeting.
time, to add this word. Call for the questions already
have
been
that.
taken place. All in favor of adding the word eligible into this, say aye.
Aye?
Opposed? All right. Thank you. So that's, can you actually add that in there? Or is that
No,
not? That's
she
not,
cannot.
Okay, she can't do that. All right. So that's addressing that issue. Let's drop down under officers. The senior, no. The lead pastor may choose to defer the chairmanship. That's already understood. The elders shall elect from within their board a chairman, a vice chairman, a secretary, a treasurer, and a membership steward. We are adding the office, or not I say office, but the role of one of the elders as a membership steward. This is how we govern ourselves within the elder board, and that's basically this is how we function. This is what we've been doing, and I really only see that as an editorial change per se. If there's any questions, you're welcome to jump in with questions. All right, moving over to page 5, page 6. all right? The Board of Ministries shall consist of the pastoral team, secretary, treasurer, assistant treasurer. And then it goes on with the whole list there that's already, that we're not changing anything. The only thing we're changing is we're taking out senior pastor, we're taking out a pastoral staff member at the senior pastor's discretion. Since we don't have a senior pastor, we are functioning as a pastoral team, which is on our board of ministries.
Which would also mean that if we add more people to the pastoral team, they will be added to the board of ministry
That is
by
correct.
default.
That is correct. So does that make sense? What was just said. So if we add more to the pastoral team, they are automatically a member of the board of ministries. Okay. It does not mean that they're members of the board of elders. Okay? Just for clarity's sake, unless they are invited on. All right. I just wanted to make that clear. Page 7, adding the word "the lead pastor" is as added there at page 7. That's just to give clarity. And now we're at page 8. This is dealing with the role and the ministry of the deaconesses. So, page 8, all of the responsibilities, A, B, C, D, and E, have been condensed into a simple definition of what the role of the deaconesses do. It says this: the responsibility of the deaconesses will encompass these ministries: altar, baptism, communion, comfort care, and prayer chain. We haven't changed anything, we've just simplified it. We didn't explain what those are, we just simply narrowed it down to what those areas of ministry are. The clarification of these will be moved into what we call the Auburn Alliance Church Manual, or the wording that I'm using also is the word appendix. So I use the word appendix and I use the word church manual. It's something that is governed, or if not amenable to the Board of Ministries and the Board of Elders. Primarily, the Board of Elders is the one that handles that, is the church manual, or what I'm also calling the appendix. But so we're simplifying the role of the deaconesses to a clarifying sentence, and then we're taking the description of those areas of ministry and we're putting them into the church manual under the description of what the ministry is of the deaconesses. So that's pretty much what that is, that first section there, how we are narrowing down the responsibilities of the deaconesses. Any questions? Yes.
Don asks, is there a reason why this format was changed for deaconesses but not for the other offices?
Why was it? Well, it was because we've been addressing the issue of the deaconesses and helping clarify what is their role. So the role of the deaconesses carries 3 particular areas: spiritual ministry, comfort care, and service. Now, what if you look under the word altar is really encompasses, in the context of what this was written as, that was the ministry or the spiritual ministry of the deaconesses. But the fact of the matter is the role of the deaconess is much bigger than altar ministry. There's doing visitation, there is engaging, there is counseling that can be involved associated with the deaconesses. And so we didn't want the spiritual definition of the ministry of the deaconess to be just simply at the altar. So yes, the altar is a part of it, but the role of the deaconesses, spiritual, comfort care, and service, is going to be further expanded over these next months as our deaconesses are, Pastor Jim and I are engaging with them. And in particular, I'm working with Pat Phillips, who is the head of the deaconesses, and us mapping out a step-by-step process where our deaconesses are going to grow spiritually and they're going to engage in these areas of ministry as such. I have another hand here. Yes.
Yeah, I want to speak towards this. Pastor Mark and I today were talking. We assumed that this was going to come up in discussion tonight, and I'm glad that it did. One of the things that we've been talking about for over a year now is the idea of the difference between small church, medium-sized church, and a large church. And one of the things that has to change as a church grows is its bylaw documents to try to move a lot of the definition of what roles different ministry positions in the church hold. When a church is small, all of those roles are put into their bylaws. And then a change of that definition is brought before the entire congregation to decide what the role of the deaconesses are, what the role of the CE members are, what the role of the board members are, what the role of the elders are. As the church grows, the needs for those positions to change increases, because you can't predict what do the deaconesses have to do 3 years from now, 2 years from now, 6 months from now. We're not sure, right? So as our church changes, we would like to move the definition of the roles and responsibilities of each of these different people from a bylaw definition to a church manual definition. Now, the reason why we didn't bring a shift in all of the different areas of the church to this bylaw change is because only one group within the church has contacted Pastor Mark and I and said, can we work this out, and can we do it apart from the bylaws? And that was the deaconesses have come to us and said, can we redefine these things?
Yeah.
So we're using that opportunity for us to move this list of qualifications from a bylaw, which has to be brought and approved before the entire congregation, to being something that the elders and the board of ministries and the deaconesses can work on their own, as Kevin said earlier, as representatives of the congregation, instead of bringing it to the entire congregation every time we want to change a role and responsibility. So we would perceive that in the next 6 months to a year, we would have another bylaw opening, as we are today, where we would move the CE responsibility into a manual, or we would move the Board of Ministries responsibilities to a manual definition. But we're not prepared to move all of these responsibilities at this point in time, because that's a lot of work. So we're going to take it one at a time as we get there. Does that make sense? Do you understand that? That's why we are doing this with the deaconesses at this time.
PJ, can I just add too, from the link perspective of new people coming in, it became a question also, well, what is a deaconess? What is a trustee? What they want to know, which is an exciting thing to have a problem with, is well-defined positions. And that also created the need for mentorship within the deaconesses, which they're doing a great job of bringing people on to mentor them and be clear what the definition is. Does that make sense?
Very good. Thank you for wording it that way. I hope that makes sense and answers the question of why we're taking the role responsibilities and we're moving it and clarifying it under the church manual per se. So, any other questions associated with that? All right, I'm going to move on. So we're presenting this to you in the wording form, and we're going to move on with this. Under Section 2, the Board of Deaconesses shall consist of at least 6 members elected for 3-year terms. Additional members may be added at the approval of the Board of Elders as recommended by the Deaconess Board. We're taking it away from a 2-year term to a 3-year term. It's bringing it in line with how we're functioning, how we function with our elders, and how we put them on a 3-year term rather than, because that's what the elders are on a 3-year term. And therein, this is a part of empowering the role and the ministry of the women and our role of deaconesses to have a spiritual influence within our church body. We are not making them elders. We're still calling them deaconesses. But we are empowering them in the context of spiritual ministry. And this is what the goal is of where we're heading with some of these changes for the deaconesses. Question? All right. Under Section 4, those serving as deaconesses will be, not should, will be members of the Auburn Alliance Church. Junior, and that's a change because it was should be implied that they could be deaconesses without being a member. This is now changing that and saying to be a deaconess you need to be a member, all right? And then we're at the counsel and direction and request of the deaconesses. Junior deaconesses are not required to be members only until they seek to become a deaconess, and the junior deaconesses are amenable to the deaconesses. This is under the umbrella of the deaconesses. The deaconesses want to have a mentorship and a working with younger women in the context of making them junior deaconesses. This would be all under that umbrella of the deaconesses as such. And they control that. They would govern that. This is not something, in a sense, that is definable by the elders as saying, okay, you're a junior deaconess. This is the deaconesses saying, okay, this individual would like to be a junior deaconess, and then the deaconesses would decide that. Question or comment? All right. I don't see anything. Section 6. This is an addition. There is nothing. This was not present in our bylaws before. So what this is doing is this is bringing us in alignment with how we function in electing of our elders. And so in so doing, we are raising the bar of the spiritual expectation and involvement for our deaconesses. And so at the annual congregational meeting, the election of deaconesses will be by secret ballot. This is exactly what we do for our elders. We will do the same thing for our deaconesses. The nominees who receive a majority vote by the congregation will constitute the election of these persons to office. So this is exactly the same thing we do for our elders. It's just putting it under that area of the deaconesses. And then the process of the nomination of a deaconess is exactly the same under Section 7. This is exactly the same as what we do for our elders as such. So I'm not going to read it, but that's what that wording is. If you see it, it comes right out of what we do for the elders too. Question or comment? Okay. I'm going to move on. All right. 10, 11, 12. I'm going to go through. I can't remember where the last ones are. Okay, 14. This is dealing with their annual congregational meeting. Annual congregational meeting of the Auburn Alliance Church shall be held on the first Wednesday of December. If you're in need of understanding the rationale behind that, it has to do with a financial thing. It has to do with ending our fiscal year, and I'm going to need some help here. Somebody want to step up and say why we're doing this?
Currently, we're voting on the budget for our fiscal year is January 1st to December 31st. We currently are not voting on the budget till the fourth Wednesday of January. So we're kind of having to retroactive some things. And specifically for Barb, our bookkeeper, if we vote to give anyone a raise, we're now 4 weeks behind in how we were paying them, or any other line item that we have on the budget. So this is just so that we would make those decisions prior to the start of our fiscal year.
Okay, very good. Any questions or comments to that? Yes, sir.
In the past, the reason that it was moved up until January was because of the fact that they didn't have the year-end figures. I'm just remembering.
Yep.
So what I thought, and I guess we haven't necessarily discussed it with Patrick, but is that I could see us as a financial team creating those reports and handing them out in January, because we're not what needs to happen at the congregational meeting is the voting. The reports, no one's, well, I guess maybe we vote on accepting the report, but we can have the reports, and I think that we should and need to have end-of-year financial reports distributed to the congregation in January. It would just be a separate thing. We're not reading many of them now as it is, but personally, I just think it would be a lot easier to have the budget in place ahead of time. And yes, you're going to vote on the budget with probably data from 10 months. But we're still being prepared, you know, for the next coming year, and then we'll provide what the year-end figures were in January.
And we can pretty much estimate what
Right.
most of the expenses will be for the remainder of the year. Because things are pretty constant.
Yep.
I said, we can come up with estimated figures for the end of the year because costs are pretty constant. Unless there's some major unforeseen thing that happens, we can, you know, give a pretty good estimate of what our expenses are going to be for the year.
Okay, very good. Yes, Carol?
All our government entities operate in this fashion. The budgets are in place before the fiscal year begins.
Okay.
And like with ours, we do a budget. Ours has to be voted on by November. So we have to project what we're going to need for those last few weeks. But it's just a typical way that it's handled.
I mean, I really had made a presentation that we would make it somewhere around December 25th, 24th, but I thought D-Day would be a better day. So anyway, just kidding about that. So any other question about changing of the date of the annual congregational meeting? Okay, now I've presented to you some of the changes, and now we could take these individually. I'm asking that we not do that. I'm asking that we would deal with this all in one encompassed change, and but I would need your approval of that in the sense, and I would need a motion to go at that. All right, so. Okay, there's a motion, and then I see a second. All right. Second, I had 2 seconds. All right. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you for that. Now, that changes, the bylaws have changed. I didn't go to the very last page because that depended upon you approving of that. So that's why the blue on the last page wasn't something that we voted on. It's just an editorial identification of what some of those changes were. So the last piece of, yes, sir.
Do we just vote on voting on all of them together?
Yes, yes, we did. So the last piece of item of information is we want to talk about is the role of a worship pastor. And so I'm going to need Pastor Jim to help me in this. Pardon?
We voted to act on them as a group.
Yes.
We didn't vote to accept them.
We didn't vote on accepting the bylaws.
Oh, okay. So we voted on accepting them as a group.
Correct.
Okay.
Now
So
we need to
your
vote on-
motion.
I motion we vote on the bylaws.
Okay, Lindsay. Approve of them. Okay, thank you for the clarity. I thought that was already a given, but anyway, and I have another second in the back. Okay, now you're voting on accepting these changes, all right? So the previous vote was about doing them together, all right? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Thank you. I love the fact that you know Robert's rules better than I do. So anyway, we're talking about the hiring of a worship pastor, worship leader. The elders are in the process right now of developing a job description for this pastoral role. We've been dealing with it for the last couple of months. We presented, Pastor Jim and I presented an idea They looked at it, the elders did, and then they have been working and sharing their thoughts. Now it's going to come back to them with all of the changes, and we're going to talk through that job description as such of what is the worship leader. There is also a planned discussion for the pastoral search team to come together at the end of June to begin discussing not only the job description, but also who would fill that. Now, we're going to, at that meeting, the pastoral search team is going to discuss the job description. We're going to discuss other candidates, and we're going to discuss the process of candidating, and then also we're going to discuss what are we going to pay this individual, which will involve understanding where we are financially as such. So that's going to take place on June the 28th. The pastoral search team is going to come together to begin hashing through some of the detail of this. We are also planning in July a video interview with one individual that we've introduced already to not to the congregation, but to the worship team and to our leadership. And we're going to have an interview with that individual, and that is the gentleman by the name of P.J. Barner. And then we've also looking ahead into the months to come when we could possibly candidate an individual or this individual as such. And so we want to talk about I put a note to myself here, and I'm trying to understand why I put that note there. But anyway, do you have something you want to say?
Yeah, any questions or comments?
Okay. Is there any questions or comments associated with the role, the hiring or the looking at a worship leader as such? Okay, so the pastoral search committee is made up of all of the elders and all of the board of ministries. They come together, and that makes up the pastoral search team. So it's about 17 of us, I think it is. Yes. So any questions, comments associated with the role of a worship leader / pastor? Yes.
So, from the leadership, why a worship pastor versus a youth pastor? Because youth pastor has been brought up in the past as a priority many times.
Okay. It has been, yes. We've talked about hiring of a youth pastor. To answer the question, the opportunity of this individual has come across our path beginning last year when I took notice to this individual in particular. And so it sort of brought us to address that issue first because of where he is in his life. And it's not that so much that we felt that it was not important for us to youth pastor, because that's also a part of the desire is to hire a youth pastor. But that's partially the answer to answer your question. Please, any elders jump in. Yes, sir.
I think the biggest thing is we evaluated the need of the ministry. And so when you think about a worship pastor or a worship leader, it's more than just somebody leading songs on Sunday morning. It's about connecting the team together. And so with the congregation bringing on Pastor Jim as an associate pastor, as part of the pastoral team, one of the things that's done for me as the youth leader is given me some more support. Not that Pastor Mark or Pastor Richter didn't support, but it spread the workload out. So now it makes it more viable for me to continue in that. And so leaders like Bob and Jenna and Lori who jump in, we feel like we have a good handle on the team that we have right now. Ultimately, I would love to hire a youth pastor because we maintain, we're not necessarily growing. We've talked about that. But considering the health of where we are right now and the dynamics of how well our pastoral team works, we spent a lot of time in prayer about that. And same question, I brought that up. Okay, we've talked about youth pastor. It's kind of come, gone, got tabled, came back. where do we stand in that? And I think it's ultimately we are a church that needs to have a youth pastor on staff. That is the ultimate goal. But after praying about it and talking in a lot of meetings, the ability to connect our sound team and the people who work so diligently on the sound and our musicians, and also into helping out with youth group. And we have a youth worship team with members so that they can build into being here in church. And just like the junior deaconesses and other things, we want to continue to reach back and to, as we've been talking about, give it away. And so I think it's a very valid question, and one that I had to get answers for myself. But I just wanted you to know from myself, I feel very comfortable in the position of where we are in seeking a worship pastor or worship leader. And then also, just to be faithful, look at what God has done for us to raise $24,000 for a team to go to life. We've done that in a record time, and that's because of you guys, but that's also from God. God has multiplied things. And so I'm praying that if we are faithful in helping contribute to the pastoral team, and the staff that we have at this church who are doing such a great job, I pray that this is just like a launching pad where we can start to lessen the workload. I look at it from a youth sporting direction. I coach in a lot of different youth things, and for me, the only reason I can do that is because somebody else coordinates the activities times and different things like that. So if we can spread the workload out, we can take the talent that we have in the church and build upon that. So I hope I'm not long-winded in that, but.
Phil, the fact that you answered the question is exactly what we need to hear.
So that was an excellent answer, and the members are here to hear that, but I'm sure there's other people who attend here who won't understand that unless they get to see this video or your audio of your answer, because that is an excellent answer, how it ties into everything.
People can always feel free to reach out to me as well. I know when we first started talking, I've been trying to lay the groundwork for a youth pastor, because I've been in youth ministries that are smaller in size than what we have here, but they do more. And when we go to things like Teen Chill, there are so many pastors that look at what we have here at Auburn Alliance, like, how do you not have a pastor? But the clarity and just having that communication, so people can always ask me, I want that to be clear. It's not because I don't love what I'm doing here. I understand that I want to be the same thing that Pastor Mark and Jim do for each other. If we were to hire a youth pastor, boy, that would be just to support in any way that we can. So yeah, if people have questions, they can always reach out to me, and I would love to answer their questions.
Excellent.
I have two comments and a question came in online. The first comment is, as we've been talking to the young adults, our targeted focus groups, young families, and talking to them about what they like about our church and what they like to see changed about our church, seeing the worship be upgraded to more of a modern worship style is right at the top of the list. If we were to invest in a youth pastor first and brought in a whole bunch more young people and invited them to come to church on Sunday morning where they're already saying they're not connecting to our worship style, I think that would be the wrong order. That's something we've talked about as elders, that getting our worship on Sunday morning to another level first would be the right order before we invite more young people to come in. Number two, Pastor Mark and I, we talk about this all the time. There's not a large pool right now of potentials, worship leaders and potential youth pastors, particularly a pool of people who would be willing to take a part-time job for those ministry positions. Those positions are being gobbled up by churches who are offering full-time positions with benefits and all kinds of opportunities for record labels and all that kind of stuff. You know, that's what worship leaders are looking for right now. I've had conversations with other people in our district, including our district superintendent, and I'm pretty much told, I ain't got nothing for you. There's not this long list of people looking for these positions currently. So when someone comes across our desk, Pastor Mark and I reach out to them. We usually take them out to lunch or have a connection with them to have a personal contact, to see how well this person would fit before we present them to the elders, before we present them to the congregation. These are people we've already met with, our district has already looked at. So that's kind of the process that we have now. We talked to 2 potential youth pastors who just weren't a good fit. That's just where we are right now. They're just not a good fit for us. We talked to the first potential worship leader, and we think he's a really good fit. He's excited about the opportunity to interview with us. We're excited about the opportunity to have him interview with us as well. So that's part of the process I wanted to share with you. Somebody asked the question, would this person have the title pastor, or would they just be a worship leader? The title pastor currently is handed out by people who are licensed individuals. That's an official title that is given by our denomination. So if the person that we hire wants to go through the licensing process through the Alliance to earn the right to have the title pastor, then he or she would be receiving that title. If not, then they are just ministry leader. That's the title. Not that they're just a ministry leader, Phil. Don't take that. But Phil can't walk around and say, I am the youth pastor at our church, because pastor is a title that's given by the denomination, not by a local congregation. Your turn.
And our desire is that this individual would be make it more confusing, a worship pastor. So that's part of the job description that we're looking at, and is going to be discussed at the elder level and at the pastoral search team level too. So I would like for the individual to be a pastor, but that also requires responsibility on their hand. So I'm just sharing with you my hand on this. So, yes, sir.
Did I discern that through the interview with the worship team now and what Jim just said, that it would be more of a more contemporary type of and even beyond what it is now in the contemporary form, with the cessation of hymns altogether?
No, it would actually more incorporate hymns, or at least a hymn. That's something that we have discussed at the elder level. We've discussed we want the incorporation of at least a hymn in our worship setting on Sunday morning. So when the word contemporary constitutes an idea of like we're going to be putting on a concert. No, that's not what we're doing. It's going to look the same. It's going to use some of the same songs, but we want to incorporate even other songs, spiritual songs, hymns.
Actually, the person we're talking about was at the community worship and did 6 hymns.
That's one. Yeah, that was the
that
one individual
person
we're looking
that
at
we're
right now. Yeah.
inquiring about.
Yeah. So I understand the word contemporary has a connotation with it. It's going to look the same somewhat. I mean, it's going to be not exactly the same because a new worship pastor will bring a new element, new dynamic to it. But we definitely want hymns a part of our worship. Now, are they going to look like, are we going to play the organ and the piano for that? I would constitute that it's probably still going to be a worship team that will be playing the instruments and leading us into worship. As the leader feels, senses God's leading on that particular Sunday. That's the best way I can answer that question. Yes, sir.
If you had the opportunity to meet with PJ while he was here, you saw the kind of dynamic that he would bring and personality.
Right. Yeah. Does that answer your question, sir? Bucky, I mean, does that answer it?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Other questions or comments on in the context of the role of a worship pastor? All right. Yes, sir.
Just a question. What would your role then become?
What would my role become?
Yes.
I'm still the lead pastor, and I facilitate the pastoral team. That's what I do now. He won't preach on a regular basis, but he'll be a part of the rotation. So let me give you the rationale. When I was talking to Pastor Jim about this when he first came in, I said, "Do you want to be viewed as a pastor?" And he said, "Yes, because I am being hired as a pastor." I said, "Then to be a pastor in the context of Auburn Alliance Church, you need to preach, because therein, consciously and subconsciously, we all afford authority to an individual who we see preaching on Sunday morning. Maybe not every Sunday, but over in the course of that." Now, what we have tried to model since he's been here in the last 3 years is that we make decisions together, as not only on the topics of what we're going to be preaching on, but how this thing is going to flow, how we as a church are flowing scripture-wise, and in the sense of what scripture we're going to use, but also topic-wise, and what we do. So, like, he has given me suggestions as it relates to the sermons that I have given, and vice versa. I have given him some suggestions, and we've worked together even when he's the one preaching or I'm the one preaching. So what we would want to do is incorporate a worship pastor into that dynamic and into that relationship. And because then what happens is then that gives us, the pastoral team, access to the individual that is leading worship. So we can say, this is what's going to happen in working with that individual. Verbally, it's difficult to explain, but it makes sense when you're in the context of the pastoral team and when we have a worship pastor. I don't know if that makes sense, but I'm trying to make it clear. My role isn't going to change in what it is at this point. Any other questions or comments? All right. Do you have any other questions unrelated to the worship pastor that you might have relating to the church? Now that we're together as a church family, as a group, is there any other questions you have? Would we entertain a worship pastor a worship leader who doesn't get paid? I don't know how to answer that question. We're heading in the direction of a worship pastor, somebody that we would hire, particularly what we're thinking now is part-time, and then that person would also need to work outside of their scope of ministry here. But I don't know how to answer that other than that. You have an answer?
So to help address that, when you pay someone to do a job, they're required to do that job. That would be lead practices, that would be prepare the music, that would be make sure everybody that's up on that stage helping lead us in the worship has prepared and they're there, just like you expect the pastors to prepare, just like if you want to take it into the secular realm, if you're paid to do a job, you're expected to do that job and do it very well. In this case, you're leading this church in worship, expected to give 120% to the Lord to honor and glorify Him. So as a paid position, there's a responsibility that comes with that. Also said on the other side, if you have a volunteer, sometimes expecting someone that's volunteering to put that much time and effort into something away from their family or their job or anything else, sometimes those things take a backside to actually what they're doing. So with leading towards having at least a part-time paid position, that guarantees that we're going to get the fulfillment of the requirements of what we're paying that individual for.
Well said, Mark. This has been a topic of discussion in almost every elder meeting since I've been here. It's not a new topic for us to be thinking about. We've consulted other churches, we've consulted leaders. I've read on this extensively, and I believe that what's going to help us as a church go to the next level for a number of people who are part of our church, our evangelistic outreach into our community of reaching another generation, is for us to have somebody from another generation be able to help our church understand worship the way the next generation leads worship. Really, really, really appreciate all that our worship team brings to our church. They're outstanding. They're great musically. The presentation that they give on Sunday morning for a group of volunteers is really, really good. And we're not asking to replace any of them.
Correct.
What we are doing is saying that we value that worship experience enough as a church, as leaders of our church, to be able to invest some money into a person who is going to be able to help that team become a better team. It's a lot to ask for a volunteer. If somebody came to us and said, I'll be a volunteer and I'll take on this, and we give them the job description and they go, that's too much for me to do, which is what members of our worship team has said, this is too much for me. I can't do all this and have a job and have a family. And we said this is such an important thing in our church that we're willing to pay somebody to do that added stuff to help our current worship team come to the next level. You said it well, Mark, but that's the reason why we're looking for such an individual. And I will tell you that individual is rare to find in Christianity today, to find someone who is solid biblically, who would merge together with our church well, who would not want to be here for 3 months to get the bigger church, but someone who loves us as a group, who we as a group can love on as a part of our pastoral team. It's not, you can't pick somebody out of the yellow pages and say, let's take this person. So thankfully, God has led us to look at P.J. Barner as our first look because of the relationship that we have with him, because of the person that we know that he is, because of the way he is just, he leads worship. Wherever he goes, whatever he does, he's in that position. And we think that would be a really good fit for who we are at Auburn Alliance. And I will tell you that on the first look that we had with him, he absolutely fell in love with our church. He fell in love with the people of our church. He fell in love with the worship team in our church. And he is waiting for us to give him the okay to interview for that position because he would really like to have that privilege to interview. We don't know other people. If you know other people would like the privilege to interview for this position, let us know, because we would like to talk to them too. But at the same time, I want to let you know we have somebody who is looking forward to having that opportunity to interview. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent.
Would you make it a qualification for his hirement that he pursue?
I actually put that in the chat to Don, that in our draft copy of the job description, which we still haven't finalized yet, one of the points on there is that he or she would pursue licensing with the district. That's our desire.
That's our desire, yeah.
I'd like to comment on it.
Sure.
As one of those
I might as well, right?
great volunteer members of our
Yes.
worship team.
So as a member of both the worship team and the tech team, I'm in the unique position of seeing what's deficient right now. And I think that's part of the reason why we should really be looking at hiring somebody. During the week, I'm here doing quite a bit because I'm blessed with a job right now that allows me to come here and work on some of this stuff during the week. And if I'm unavailable to do that, it'd be really nice if we had somebody who could dedicate that time to these systems, to improving all this stuff. Dave's been a wonderful leader. I don't have anything against him, but I also know that he's extremely busy. And, because of that, there's expectations that would be impossible to put on him. So I really think that this is of the Lord, and I see nothing but positive coming about it. I think it's great that he's young. In talking with other worship leaders, they say that there's a high percentage of burnout with worship leaders because a lot of them are, part-time positions, but the demand ends up becoming more than part-time on how much they can give. And yeah, I guess that's just what I had to offer.
No,
about
excellent,
that, so.
excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Back to the dungeon.
Back to the soundboard. So I want to share a concept with you, something that I saw about 5 or 6 years ago when we first started discussing hiring a youth pastor. I was talking with Phil, and I said, you know what I see? I see that we have individuals within this church who would be phenomenal support circle around hiring of a youth pastor. Now, I'm intentionally doing this by this way, talking about a youth pastor. See, I saw individuals like Phil. It wasn't about kicking Phil out. It was about hiring a youth pastor. It was Phil shifting his position and then coming alongside of others, Bob, Hector. Now that we have PJ. At that particular time, we didn't have PJ. And this would be a ring of individuals that would work around the youth pastor to encourage, to build up, protect, give ideas, bring spiritual formation. A part of a culture of discipleship is having this mindset that we are intentional about developing those even at the pastoral level. This may be very difficult to hear, but the fact of the matter is that some of individuals that are coming out of college, Bible school, still need to be developed. They have to mature. And if you can create an environment where they could succeed because you have individuals around them that are prodding, encouraging, challenging for them to win, that's a win for them. Now, I'm talking about a youth pastor. I see exactly the same dynamic developing in the area of a worship pastor. See, the idea isn't about kicking Dave out. Why would we want to do something like that with somebody that's so talented and gifted, who's experienced worship and watched the transition of worship even take place here? Would we want to kick him out? No. He just shifts his position. We bring an individual, and then we have a circle of individuals that would be around him to support, encourage, challenge, and see their spiritual development. I see exactly the same thing transpiring within the worship team context, so that we are intentional about developing our worship pastor, but also helping them along. And so, to me, that's the vision that God, I believe, has given us as a church. It's part of what the dynamic is of a pastoral team. We were at district conference a couple months ago, and how many individuals, pastors, talked to Pastor Jim and myself, and they have now seen, because they weren't sure what this was. What is this whole thing about a pastoral team? What are you talking about? No, it's just another name. You're just calling them lead and all, but it's still this hierarchy. No, it's not. And now they're seeing the fruit of what we have been accomplishing here, and they're saying to us, that's what I want to be into, because it's not so much that I bear the weight of it, but we bear the weight together. And it's just amazing what God has done in our midst. He really has, just in the context of pastoral team. Yes, Carol.
I just wanted to say that when I started at this church, there was a strong mentorship program. And I believe that we all need to get back to that, because we have to leave our children a healthy church. And we have to build up the next generation to take over. Because face it, we're all getting older.
We are.
So.
That's true. So a part of, if you may remember, when we did in one of the years we did the interactive prayer journey, and you were supposed to do the cutout dolls. There was 3 dolls in a row. You were the doll in the middle, and then there was a doll that represented the person that was in front of you. That was the person that was speaking into your life, doing the mentorship. And then there was the person that was behind you. That was the one that you were investing in. See, that's the concept of what we're talking about here. And in what we're looking at as a worship pastor, we can see that we have a team that could rally around this worship pastor, but he is also going to be positioned to be able to influence those that are coming up. And I can tell you one right now that it's ready for that, and that's Braden Mitchell. Now, he's not here, and I'm talking about him without his presence, but the fact of the matter is that that's the hand that's reaching back, influencing him. What is he, 15 years old? And a worship pastor could influence him while this team of individuals is around our worship pastor. To me, that is a win-win-win situation. That is different. Because we have traditionally seen within the church, you isolate your pastor because that's his job, that is his ministry, and instead we're looking at this as we're doing this thing together. And I love it. I absolutely love it. I love it when others succeed, and I just happen to be a benefit of it. I get the benefit of it. So thank you for letting me share that. That's deep in my heart, and it's being able to use the context of this to be able to share that. There is nothing else that I have on my agenda, and I've offered to open it up for discussion. Any other questions? So what we're going to do now is we're going to close our meeting officially, and I would need a motion to receive that. I have a motion. Is that a second? You wanted to second it? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much. Can we stand together, and then we're going to close in prayer. All right. Mr. Kevin, would you close us in prayer? There's the microphone right here for those that are online. Thank you.
Dear Lord, we give thanks for this time we spend together in your name. We are gathered together in your name to make a difference in this community and the world. Dear Lord, help us to be that light that this world needs. Help us to be indwelled with the Holy Spirit, and then take that power and use it to lift up others. Dear Lord, let us be a light here in Auburn, and then let it spread throughout the country, the state, and all of us as we go around in our daily lives. Ministry isn't just what we do here at church, it's how we live. And help us to live that life that other people will look at us and go, I want that. And dear Lord, just lift us up, give us wisdom, give us strength as we go out, and give us safety tonight on our way home. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you very much. Have a good night and a good week.